Howdy. What is this? It's the Racetrack Valley from the northern part of Death Valley. Or I should say it's the Racetrack Playa. And pretty interesting place, wouldn't you say? Look at that. So what is this Racetrack Playa thing, you might be asking? Because after all, playa is a Spanish word for beach. But no, it's not a beach. A playa is actually it's a lake bed, a very flat lake bed that is it's a depression between it's usually a depression at the bottom of a mountain range, or it could be a in between two mountains, like we have the case here. And what happens is when it rains, then the sediment will come down into this little basin and fill it up. And if the sediment is the right consistency, it will form this really flat bed of sediment. Now this sediment right here, it's about 1,000 feet thick, if you can believe that. There's 1,000 feet of this stuff here, and it's hard as rock too when it's dry. So anyway, what happens is it comes down, and with the right consistency like it is, it forms this really flat shape. In fact, a playa, in geological terms, is just about one of the flattest spots on Earth. This is not the only playa on Earth, of course, but playas are about the flattest spots on Earth. And to give you an example of this, this playa is about 3 miles from the north end down here to the south end. And the difference in height from one end to the other is only about 1.5 inches. So that's pretty flat. And like I mentioned, it's the sediment is 1,000 feet thick. Also, the playa is about 1.5 miles wide. And they call it a racetrack playa because when people first came here, they thought, well, this looks kind of like a racetrack. So there you go. But anyway, there's something besides being flat about this playa. There's something mysterious too. You want to know what that is? You may have heard about it. It's the moving rocks. There's actually rocks on this playa. Let's see if you can see them here. These rocks actually do move. So I'll give you some evidence of that. Can you see this here? No, you can't. Let me give you some better evidence. The rocks, when they move, they actually make a track on the surface here. Here's one. Can you see that? Look, straight line. And it goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And it's most likely going to be that rock right out there that made this whole track. I'll show you another one over here. Look at this. This is a bigger track. Can you see that? That track moves and moves. And then there's that rock right there. So let's go take a look at it, huh? So people would come out here and they would see these tracks of these rocks and they'd say, well, how can that happen? How can these rocks walk across the surface And so there were various theories. They thought, well, maybe they didn't know. Maybe the wind did it or something like that, or they rolled. But these tracks are not roll kind of tracks. They're just basically sliding. So various theories and various mysteries. They thought maybe aliens did it because Area 51 is just out that way 150 miles, something like that. So some private geologist types came out, and with permission of the Park Service, they did a study. And this was as recently as 2013, I believe, and then they had their results. They finally compiled their results in 2014. But what they did in 2013 is, now somebody moved this rock. In 2013, they picked some of the big rocks that were out here and put GPS trackers on them. And then they got stop motion cameras, not on the playa itself, but on the edge. And then they turned those on, and then they waited. And they waited, and they waited, and they waited. And then finally, aha! They found out what caused these rocks to move. And here it is. It has to be a combination of a number of conditions all at the right time. So what happens is, as I told you before, when it rains, the sediment will wash down onto this playa, and it being the right type of sediment that's very, very fine, what will happen, it creates a very, very, very smooth and sticky sheen right on top, okay? And then as the rain continues, it will form a very small amount of water on top of the surface here, maybe an inch at the most. And then at that point, the temperature has to freeze so that the water freezes. And then what the freezing does is it captures the rocks. Here's one right here. The water sheet on top of the playa here captures the rocks, right? And entombs them, so to speak. Then what has to happen is the winds have to come up, start blowing. And you know, typically when it's freezing and the wind comes up, it makes it get colder. But here's the right combination that has to happen. The wind actually has to come up, and it has to be warmer, so then it starts to thaw out the ice to make the ice crack into different sheets of ice. And then what happens, the wind will then blow that whole sheet of ice with the entrapped rocks in it. And that's what causes then the movement of the rocks across the playa, and thus the tracks. And with the ice sheets being heavier, a greater mass than the rocks themselves, that's how that can do that. So that's why you get the moving rocks, and you get the tracks of the rocks here on the playa. And how do they know that? Again, from watching the GPS trackers, and also by using the cameras, they could see all this. In fact, I'll show you a picture right here of the tracks of the rocks. You can see that a number of the rocks, they all go in parallel. You see that? And then bam, they make a 90-degree turn, and that's just from the shifting of the winds and carrying the sheet ice with the trapped rocks across the playa. So let's look at this rock again here. See how big this rock is? Give you a comparison. There's my foot. So that's probably at least a 30-pound rock. Take a look at this. That track goes for a long way. Here's another track over here. You see that? It's a pretty neat thing. And you may be wondering, is that a big rock out there? No, that's called the Grandstand Playa. Let's go take a look at it in a second. So, anyway, that's the Racetrack Playa, and a pretty interesting little place here. I'll tell you that. If you want to come out here to this secret spot here, well, it's it's about 28 miles up a pretty washboarded dirt road. Theoretically, a regular passenger car can make it, but be forewarned, there's a lot of rocks also, and a lot of people do get flat tires, so don't come here when it's hot, and make sure you have a couple of spares and drive slowly. But really the better way to do it is just come out here with a vehicle with proper tires, off-road tires, so that you can not get flat tires. And it's a great place out here too. It's very quiet, just like the other place. So Racetrack Playa, let's go look at the north end and then continue on with our journey. Okay, here's the grandstand at the north part of the playa. Take a look at the difference between the dark rock of the grandstand and the light color of the lake bed here. So the grandstand is actually it's about 73 feet tall, and it consists of monzonite. And what's interesting about this is that it's this is actually exposed bedrock. Now think about that. Not only the contrast in colors, but the contrast in geology. Exposed bedrock and recent sediment that has settled on the lake bed, and the lake bed itself being about 1,000 feet thick. So when you think about this bedrock being exposed 73 feet above the lake bed, think how deeply that goes down. So this is probably at least 1,000 feet, 1,000 foot exposure. And the colors really are pretty when you look at the contrast between the lighter and the darker, and then you've got the golden colors of the grasses right there. It's really stunning, up close and personal too. So Racetrack Playa, really neato. Neato Cabito, man. So that's it for the this secret spot in Death Valley, and guess we'll head back to the road. But on the way, maybe we can have a little tea party, huh? What? A tea party? A tea party out in the middle of the desert? What are you talking about? You're really crazy, aren't you? Well, take a look at this.